Often with grape varieties, you don't see huge differences in clonal selection. You get subtle ones,
Yeah.
but with Nebbiolo, there is such a dramatic difference in the fruit in terms of its flavour profile, in terms of its tannin profiles across clones, that it's another tool to work with as a winemaker for added complexity and expression of sight.
Yep.
So, I would hazard a guess that a wine made only from Mudgee may be a little monodimensional.
Yep. A little bit base.
So the ability to utilise other fruit sources in the production of that wine and effectively do the blending of the wine at fermentation is great. So just to give you, so this year, for example, we've actually got about 10% 111 clone in Capo.
Yeah, right.
And the reason for that is to give a bit more linear drive through the palate with respect to the tannin profiles in that variety, but also to give it some aromatic pop.
Yeah.
Just to try and lift the aromatics a little bit.
That would make total sense, and it is like cooking in that sense, and that's the great.
Yeah, it's a spice rack.
Yeah, fully.
So.
Yeah. This is a. I can only imagine that every year is so different.
Yes.
That in a year like this year, you're just like pumped about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
We'll be talking about this vintage in years to come, won't we?
Absolutely. It's been a little bit nerve wracking to leave the fruit on the vine for so long, but it's turned out we've had absolutely perfect ripening weather. I mean, I was up there one morning sampling, and you couldn't see 100 metres. We had mist running through the valley at Gumaraka. This is exactly what they get in Piedmont.
Right.
So the ripening conditions in the finishing part of the season for us has been perfect. And so you sort of enter, once you realise that and you get to the point where you've decided to pick, it becomes really exciting to see what you're going to get in the winery, because you've had that lovely period and you know the fruit's in really good condition. So it does become exciting to receive that fruit and start working with it. It's also a great relief to have it off the vine.
Yeah.
and have it in the bag.
It's in the bag,
so to
it's
speak.
in the shed.
So this year we've got about 57% Mudgee, 10 or 11% 111, and the balance is 230 in the Capo blend. And I think the little bit of inclusion of 111 this year, I think it's quite exciting.
So I've got the order as Mudgee, 230, F12V7, F12 V13, and 111. We make a rosé from 111.
Yep.
Is that because we've got more of it?
No.
Specifically for rosé.
Yeah, the 111 clone has got lovely aromatics, lovely lifted aromatics, typified by Turkish delight, rose petals, and tea. So it's as a variety to make a dry rosé from, it's really well suited.
I can see the tea late.
Yep.
Only a hint of that Turkish delight.
Yep.
And maybe I'll keep tasting, but maybe slightly less of that seed tannin character maybe that I've been seeing through these.
It's got different tannins, very different tannins from the other clones. They tend to be a little bit more linear.
Right.
And a little bit more through the centre of the palate, which again is, I think, suited to making a rosé style wine from. The tannin profiles of the other varieties, particularly 230 and Mudgee, tend to spread across your palate.
Yep.
And they are much more bulkier, perhaps, is the way to look at.
So maybe Mudgee to finish if we're doing this in our lineup almost.
Yep.
So are F12 V7 and F12 V13 related? Are they cousins more so than the others? Is there a reason for this naming? No.
The naming is the nomenclature that's used by Yalumba, I think.
Okay.
And I'm not.
Sure.
I don't know whether they're selections from a particular vineyard, or I'm not sure how they've arrived at that.
I know. I'm finding it hard to pick up sort of that seed tannin change, but there's a flavour change here for me that goes to darker cherry.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So there's a Immediately there's a flavour change.
So this is more red fruited.
Yep.
Pomegranate,
Yep.
strawberry, and you move through a spectrum where the fruit profile becomes a little bit darker here,
Yeah.
sort of red cherry to black
It's
cherry.
quite pronounced, actually.
Yeah. And then 230 and Mudgee again are a different, slightly different profile in terms of flavour.
Right, so from my perspective, in the restaurants that we sell to and the people that love our wines and take them home and have them with food, if we wind it back to the vineyard where these were picked yesterday, what's my question? I mean, do you know 2 months ago, do you know how much of that's going to make it into Protero Nebbiolo, and maybe if that's going to maybe hover into Capo, or how much of the Tetris do you understand in the lead up?
You get an indication, but we know from experience that Mudgee always goes in. It forms the basis of
Mudgee.
Capo.
Right.
It's a tends to be, as you can see here, smaller berries, smaller bunches, so there's more concentration and greater fruit impact and tannin impact. So that forms the basis of Capo.
Yep.
230 is another deeply flavoured clone.
Yeah.
So that tends on the more black side of the fruit spectrum. And
My daughter had a pun at a blackberries the other day in the car on the way to basketball training,
Yep.
and that is very close to that.
Yep. Really ripe, well-ripened Nebbiolo will often move into the blackcurrant, blackberry spectrum. You can often see that on in riper years. Not so much with these
because
clones.
you go to the red fruited clone.
These clones more strawberry, red cherry, and roses.
But would you then be excited in a year that what I'm hearing this year is that you've got sort of good yield and quality across the spectrum of clones?
Absolutely. It's been an early season and a warm, dry ripening period. But this last period of 3 to 4 weeks has been perfect for finishing the ripening of the Nebbiolo in Gamaraka. We've had a return to cooler days and cold nights, which is really important with respect to ripening of the tannins in Nebbiolo fruit. So we've had 3 lovely weeks where we've had no more sugar accumulation, but we've had concentration of flavour, and we've had polymerisation and maturation of tannins on vine. So, really great year.
It's the permeating character of those tannin, which is the hallmark of a great year.
Absolutely.
So I'm still getting it a minute later.
Persistence.
Yep.
No bitterness.
None.
Or minimal bitterness. And no rough edges on the tannins. The tannins are all beautifully polished. These are quite linear and quite long, but very polished. The tannins that you see more so in 230 and Mudgee are a bit more fleshy, but again, they've lost all of their rough edges. So we've had lovely ripening weather for the tannin profiles in the fruit.
So I'm sort of blown away at the spectrum. I love where it sits on the table right now. What's happening with the rest of these bunches? They've come in last night. They've been destemmed, and they're now in vat. We ferment the Nebbiolos in old oak vats. So we have a ferment with the Capo component, and then 2 ferments with the balance for the estate wine. Yeah, this is an illuminating exercise. It makes it 3D, not just sort of 2D in the bottle.
Yeah, absolutely.